PFTPM from the barn continues now with Jets head coach Adam Gase. Like everyone else, been working from home and kind enough to give us some time in the aftermath of the draft. Coach Gase, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. What's been the biggest adjustment for you since the world turned upside down?
I just same as everybody else, contact with people. It's just kind of weird seeing, your players over online, being online compared to, actually seeing in person, having conversations, face to face.
And there's something to be said for the presence that a coach has in a meeting room. And I know that's going to be impossible to duplicate when you're doing these sessions via video conference. You're one of the teams that started this week with the virtual off-season training program. How has that been for you several days in, getting the messages across to these guys when you're not in a position to physically grab them by the collar if needed?
It's been good. I think guys have been excited to just do something different because it's not Groundhog Day for them. It's, every day's we're getting to talk about something else. We can watch different, every group is watching something different, in aspects of film. It's been fun for me because I can bounce around from meeting room to meeting room and, just kind of see the guys and kind of talk a little bit and see how everybody's doing. And that's been a fun aspect of it. And, you feel like you actually have some access. You can kind of split up your time, offense, defense, individual meetings. You don't have to – everybody's not going all at once.
So I hadn't thought about that. You've got meeting rooms, by position group, and then you can just swoop into any of them anytime you want.
Right. We got a window where, these guys got a couple hours to get their meetings done. So, we tried to stagger them because we do have some guys on the West Coast. Majority of our guys are on the East Coast, so that kind of helps in certain positions. But obviously our quarterback room, we got two out of the three that are under contract are on the West Coast. So we're trying to get him up bright and early. I'm sure he's loving that when we try to kick it off right away when he gets up.
What time are you dragging him out of bed?
He don't have to start to 8, so it's not too bad. But if I was 23 years old, I'd probably want to sleep.
One of the trust me, I got a 23-year-old living with me, and the argument that I get when I say, why are you sleeping until 5 p.m., the response is, there's no reason to get up. No, he's right. The virtual offseason program for the Jets, like plenty of teams, no workout component. It seems like maybe 6-7 teams are doing the workouts. What was the thought process for not including a workout?
We just felt like as an organization, it was the best. We had huge discussion about this. We were trying to figure out what was the best thing for us to do. We felt like that was the best thing for us to do. We'd focus on, the mental aspect of it. We talked to a lot of guys about really kind of, what they were doing and what they had access to. So we just felt like, with so much unknown, we felt like this was the best thing for us to do.
Let's go back to the draft. And before we do that, from your perspective, working at home, it's one thing to not have direct access to your players, but there is something to be said for a little quiet, a little solitude, being out of that pace that you can find yourself in when you're the head coach, when you got people asking you questions all day long. It's hard to get into a rhythm. It's hard to get into a routine. There has to be some benefit to being able to find a quiet spot in your house and just grind and grind and grind, especially when you're watching film before the draft or whatever the case may be.
It was definitely beneficial draft-wise. I think there was, a lot of guys, position coaches, including coordinators and guys in personnel were able to, whatever they didn't have finished, because I know, a lot of guys probably were a little ahead of schedule. And, once it kind of everything started slowing down and everybody got shipped out to their houses, we were just all focused on the same thing, just really digging deep into these, the draft stuff. And, you're right. It's really, if you're going to contact somebody there, you had a good reason to call somebody or FaceTime somebody or try to get on a Microsoft Teams or Zoom kind of sessions, but there had to be good reason. It wasn't just kind of swinging by, someone's office just to sit down and BS for a little bit. Like, there was a reason behind it. So I think there was a lot of guys that probably took advantage of that time of, uninterrupted work, outside of, if you had kids and things like that, like I have 3 kids, under 10. So, finding quiet time, it was, some days were better than others.
And nobody knows how the world is going to look and feel when it goes back to whatever normal is when all of this ends. Do you think things that you learned by necessity through this process are going to be incorporated in the way that your team, other teams may do business? Will there be one day a week where everybody works from home so they can slam the door and focus on their work, and maybe have a Zoom meeting in the middle of the afternoon, but otherwise everybody has a chance to kind of squirrel away and get work done?
It's interesting because that is a conversation that Joe and Joe Douglas and Jaime, our team president, and myself, we've had conversations about what can we take out of this, that may lend itself to next year. And, whether it is kind of how we do some of these interactive meetings we did with college players, we felt like those were very beneficial for us. And where you're at the combine, your position coach is talking to a guy and he talks to him for 15 minutes, and it was just him and the position coach. Where the interviews we were doing online with the players in college, with the internet access, was you would have all your scouts and personnel guys and coordinators and there were so many people were able to listen to one conversation, and it was very beneficial because we were all getting that. It wasn't hearsay. We were all sitting there listening ourselves, and we're able to ask questions we wanted to ask. And I do think there is some benefit that's going to come out of this. And it's just really like, we're just trying to keep good notes and just, hey, what are the things that we like? How do we think the draft meetings went? What benefited, us in that whole aspect of it. There was a lot of good things that came out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's great to get guys in person, but to the extent you can cast a wider net, have more people involved, save some money. I mean, let's face it, it's a lot cheaper when you're not flying guys in or flying your guys to them. There are some benefits there, and I have a feeling teams are going to look at that and see how can we all improve our procedures in the aftermath of this event. All right, let's go to the draft. You were in a spot where you had a high pick, but it was low enough that it had to drive you crazy, because when you're waiting for 10 other teams to pick, I mean, I don't know how much you work through all the permutations, but you got a lot of different combinations of ways the names can come off the board. How prepared were you for all the different ways that those first 10 names could have been announced, and then you figure out what's going to be left for you?
Joe did a good job of going through so many different scenarios, whether it be us sticking at the pick we were at, trading back, trading up, just anything that could come about, just, hey, what would we do in this situation? It almost felt like we were getting ready for a game, the situations that he was kind of throwing at us, and we were just constantly having these meetings, and he did such a good job of just having us ready to go. And then if we were there and one of the players that we said, hey, we're staying here, we're not going to move, was there, and we take him. And obviously we were in that position for us where, a guy that we were really fired up about, basically coming to 11 to us, we were able to stay there and take the guy we wanted. I feel like I've been in this situation a couple times. I think almost 3 of the 5 drafts, it's been 11 or 13. So, I mean, you feel like you're in no man's land. You're always hoping for, one of those guys, when you have a block of 3 or 4 guys that you think might come to you, you're hoping one of those guys are there.
How active were you in potentially trading up higher to get Becton or whoever else you may have wanted?
I don't think there was a whole bunch going on, because I do think we had, it was kind of coming to us. I think it was more situationally when we were talking about it before the draft. I don't remember that really coming up, heading, as the draft was going on. Plus, it was hard to hear with my kids. We're talking nonstop. My son must have asked me 400 times who we picking. I'm like, be quiet. I need to listen.
So they were in there with you. I saw pictures and images on TV of them, but they were there the whole time?
They were popping in quite a bit. My 10-year-old or my 8-year-old son, he was really active and popping his head in there to make sure that he was on board with what we were doing. I think the best look I got was when we drafted when I said we just drafted a punter, and he looked at me and he just shook his head and walked out of the room. I was like, oh, hey, we don't have one right now, buddy. Like we got to get one. So it was a fun draft to be a part of.
Yeah, I wonder where he got that attitude about punters from. If maybe he lives with a head coach who may have said something in the past.
I don't remember ever saying anything.
Here's the thing, though, because I was going to ask you this later, but I may as well ask you now. When you use a draft pick on a punter, there are going to be people who say, why the hell would you do that? You can get a punter anywhere. They're falling off of the trees. What is it that caused you, and I know you're working with Joe Douglas on this, but what caused the Jets to ultimately say, we're going to use this 6th-round pick on a punter?
It does get a little competitive when if you dip into college free agency. Part of that, it starts to get competitive. We didn't have a 7th round draft pick at that time. We felt like that was a good move for us, and to be able to create that competition we needed to with on our roster in that spot. We know that's an important, specialists in our division are very important. Obviously, New England's done a really good job of making sure they always have good specialists, whether it be in as far as field goal kicking or punting. They're always causing all kinds of problems, and it's you have to make sure in this division that you do have good specialists, because you're playing in Buffalo, you're playing in New England, you're playing in New York. Now all of a sudden you're in Miami. There's a lot of bad weather you got to deal with, and you have to have guys you can rely
on. Back to Becton. It bothered me that word got out of the drug test issue at the scouting combine. We're not supposed to know about that. The teams know about it. From your perspective, though, especially with the new CBA, was that a factor at all in your assessment of the player?
I think we look at everything. Any kind of information that we get. That was the thing. I think I was really impressed with how deep Joe dug into everything with him. The guys that he talked to. Who knows how many coaches that he's talked to. I don't know if he went all the way back to Pee Wee football or what, but he knew the ins and outs of his life. It was really impressive to see how far that he was digging with those, especially those top guys.
What is it that gets you excited about Becton as a player?
He's a large man, and he is violent. He's physical. He's nasty, and it's everything that you look for in an offensive lineman. When you look for a guy that, putting on the ground's not good enough. Just being around this guy, when he walks in a room, you feel his presence. He's a large man when he walks in the room. He blocks the sun for sure.
Yeah, you should have used the 6th round pick not on a punter, but on his dad.
It's not a small family.
Yeah, Dad stood out when they cut to the camera at the Becton household. So you see where Mekhi got it from. Let's move on to round 2, because receiver was obviously a big need for the Jets. Denzel Mims taken in round 2. And in a draft with so many receivers and so many guys you could have waited to get in later rounds, what was it that caused the Jets to pull the trigger in that spot on a receiver?
Yeah, I think it was the right spot. We were kind of watching how everything was moving around, and I know, Joe did a good job of trading back and creating, some more draft capital for us. And, we were I'm not sure if we were really willing to wait much longer. We were keeping an eye on him, and he slid a little bit, and we were fired up when we were able to pick him. I know I think he was a little surprised he lasted that long. And, even us, you're looking at it and you're not always thinking that, some of these talented guys are going to last as long as they do, because everybody's got a different flavor that they like as far as receivers go. And, for him to fall to us at that spot, we were all excited about it. We're fired up to get him in the building, whatever that's going to be, and see how we can help him improve.
And you guys were the last team to not draft a receiver at the top of the process. The Raiders took Henry Ruggs III right after you took Becton. How tempting was it when you have your pick of any receiver and you clearly have a need with Robbie Anderson gone and you're trying to help Sam Darnold? How tempting is it to not just say, hey, we can get any receiver we want. This is our top guy. Let's go get him.
That's what happens when you got a GM that's a former offensive lineman. That battle. We talked about it so much as far as, and I, we joke about it all the time of how I'm always going to be leaning towards the skill guys, and him being a former offensive lineman, he's always going to be leaning towards the bigger guys, or as he calls them, the real skilled guys. So I was, we had the discussion way before we ever got to that point. So if we did get to that situation where we were at 11 and Becton was there and the receivers were still there, we knew who we were going to pick, and we pulled the trigger on the guy that we knew we were going to pick.
How hard is it, though, to stick to what you've previously decided when it's all happening? And
you got to put yourself. It's just like anything else. You just got to put yourself in the mindset of hey, this is our game plan, and when we decide this is what we're doing, then we're all on board on this.
The safety position was addressed in round 3, and of course, when I saw that, I thought of Jamal Adams, and no one can really get a firm grip as to where things currently stand between the Jets and Jamal Adams as he enters year 4 of his career. What is the current relationship? Where is it right now between the Jets and Jamal Adams?
It's hard. I'm not involved in any contract talks, which is kind of the one nice thing about when technically you're not 53 and you can kind of, worry about your relationship with your players and focus on those type of things. And, the front office has to focus on a lot of the contract issues and things like that. And, I try to do everything I can to support Jamal. And then at the same time, make sure that I'm doing everything I can to help Joe and the organization, and what they need to get done as well, and managing this in, the big picture of everything. So, for me, it's I haven't had that discussion with Jamal. It's just something that, when it's a time and place that I need to get involved in, then I'll do everything I can to help. But as of right now, the contract stuff, I'm so far removed from that as at the moment, because I'm focused on the offseason program.
Quarterback James Morgan was a fascinating pick in round 4, in part because he's a guy the Patriots were sniffing around pretty heavily. What is it that stood out to you about him?
I think he's a guy that has the traits that we're always looking for in a quarterback. He has, the football kind of the passion and the hunger for football. The football IQ is definitely there. It just seemed like it was the right guy for us. And, we had multiple 4th round picks, and kind of the way it was going, he was, the highest guy on our board. And he was a guy that we were extremely interested in. And when we had the opportunity to take him, that's what we decided to do. And I felt like I was excited. Dal was excited. Joe was excited. The personnel guys were all fired up. So, he just fit what we were looking for.
How hard is it, though, when you consider he played at a lower level of competition? How hard is it to take what he did, watch his film, and project how that is going to work when he's jumping all the way to the NFL level versus where he was in college?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen it before with multiple guys that have ended up being really good players in this league. I think really it's at the end of the day, sometimes the hardest thing is to project what their mental is going to be like. How are they going to be in the locker room? How are they going to be seeing things when they change? How do they process things? Those type of things. We felt really strongly about that. We felt really good about his skill set. I mean, I get it. Like, people look at sometimes and say FIU and they're not really sure. But we feel like his skill set was exactly what we were looking for. And then his ability to process and learn and do all those things that you have to do as a quarterback in the NFL, we definitely felt like it was there.
How much harder does that become then when you finally get on the field, whenever it may be? If there's no off-season program, training camp maybe gets delayed or gets truncated, or whatever the case may be, how do you give this guy enough opportunities to develop to the point where it's justified giving him one of the 53 roster spots?
Yeah, it's the toughest thing right now for really every team in this league is going to be the fact that we don't have an offseason. And it's going to be thrown all of a sudden. Could it be training camp, or is it going to even be a shorter time then of just really trying to evaluate and see where everybody is? But the thing is we're all in the same boat, and we just got to find a way to expedite the process. That was one of the things that I think makes him extremely valuable, is his ability to process, to learn, how intelligent he is, his love for the game, trying to get better all the time. And we get on the field, we got to just kind of see where we're at that time and see what we need to improve.
And I agree with you. Before I let you go, this concept of every team's in the same boat. And you're right. The rules are the same for everyone. If one facility is closed, they're all closed. No offseason program for one team, no offseason program for any team. But I don't get the impression anybody really knows where the boat's going. What kind of information are you getting from the league as to where this all is leading? Or are you just in the same spot I'm in, the fans are in, the media's in, where we're just like, well, we just take it one day at a time. It is Groundhog Day from that perspective, and we wait for further instruction as to when in the hell things are going to get started?
We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat, and that's how I've been taking it. I know a lot of people I've been in contact with, they've been taking the same way, is one day at a time. And really, that's all we can do right now. If we try to predict what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, I mean, you're creating your own anxiety. You're worrying about things you can't control. Because this is definitely something that none of us can control right now. We're at the mercy of really kind of time and what we're told we can and can't do. So, I mean, we're just extremely focused on just a one day at a time mentality. It's for our players to embrace that right now is going to hopefully help us in the long run.
And, I hadn't thought about this until just now, but from your perspective, look, we don't know what shape the season's going to take, but it's not unreasonable to assume that the stadiums will be either empty or sparsely attended because you can't fill it up like you ordinarily would. How much are you planning for getting your guys ready to go out and play before a home crowd when there is no home crowd? Because it's got to be a different mindset from the standpoint of getting guys fired up when they know when they run out that tunnel, there's not going to be anybody there to externally get them in the right frame of mind to go play.
Yeah, I think I look at it like this. One is it's hard for me to even think that far ahead right now. That is definitely something that if I get to that point, I'm going to be excited that we're even talking about that at that point, considering like we were talking before this, the last time I left my house was March 25th or whatever it's been. Like I don't even know like what our days are anymore. You know, I'm always asking what day of the week is it? So if we're talking about that, I'll be excited. I will say this, if it does come to a situation where you don't have fans in the stands or it's limited amount, the good thing is when you're playing another team, and these guys being the professional athletes they are, you watch some of those practices that you'll see when it's, you know, the joint practices. It's intense because these guys, they are professional. They are very prideful. There is that team camaraderie of competition. You know, that's real. I mean, we have to do it a lot in practice where there's nobody out there and it's just the coaches and the players and there's competition there. At the end of the day, though, we're so far from that right now that it's hard to even think about. It's really about, hey, what can we do today to get better? And that's what we're doing with those virtual classroom sessions. And then, you know, now it's, hey, let's set up next week. What are we going to do next week that, you know, to help our team get better?
Well, we'll let you get back to it, Coach. Enjoy the time with your family, and we'll all keep going forward one day at a time, Groundhog Day after Groundhog Day.
One day at a time, man.
When it's time to play football. All right, pal, great talking to you.
Good talking to you.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.